speeches this week, something's changed in the atmosphere, that people are speaking out so much on the anger, especially people are responding to the anger of this starvation of people in Gaza. The genocide is so clear to everyone, and the fact that no one's doing anything about it. I just want to play this speech from Dr. Rahmeh Aladwan from the protest on Monday outside the Foreign Office. Another incredible speech, and she's on the call, so I'm interested to hear afterwards what she thinks about the response to it.
If I were to ask you to cheer, if you know what the Palestinian principles of liberation, which are called the Thawabit, there's 5 of them, if you know them and you could say them off by heart, can you give me a cheer? Okay, that's fine. Woo! Woo, because it's okay to not know. It's okay to not know, and that's what we should be doing as a movement. That's where we need to be educating. That's how we move the conversation along, and that's how we actually represent the Palestinian people. The Thawabit were finalized in the 1960s by the Palestinians, and they were taken from the National Charter, and they were passed unequivocally, and not a single faction in Palestine opposed them. And they are the non-negotiables, the red lines, our constants. Okay, and so if we want to stand and say I'm pro-Palestine, we need to know what the non-negotiables of Palestinian liberation are. And they are, Palestine is Arab from the river to the sea, and Al-Quds, Jerusalem, is its capital. Yes. Number 2, the Palestinian people reject normalization. What is normalization? We don't recognize the terrorist entity. It does not exist. It sits on top of Palestine, and it must be dismantled. Number 3, the Palestinian people who are fighting for liberation, including armed struggle, as per international law, right, are heroes, every single one of them. We are proud of our armed resistance, and in Islam, we call that jihad. That's an honor. That's how you defend your people. Yeah. Okay. And number 4 is one where people might not like to hear, because we're always told, oh, what's going to happen to the Israelis? Yeah? If you have a Palestinian state, I don't care, firstly, right? Because what I care about is to stop a Holocaust, okay? If I say I don't care, I'm not them, we're not them. We don't wish harm on anyone. We want to stop harm, their existence. You can only be an Israeli. It's a genocidal identity. You can only be Israeli because a Palestinian has lost their lives, homes, and have been kicked out, and do not have their basic human rights. So for you to take that identity of Israeli in the first place is outrageous. So when they ask you what will happen to Israelis, you tell them Israelis shouldn't want to be Israelis, because them being Israelis is why a Holocaust is happening. Those are the main Palestinian principles of liberation. Is there another one? Can anyone think of one? There we go. Well, there's how many Palestinians are in Palestine. Okay, for me, Palestine is in the entirety of the map. Yeah, Israel does not exist, and I can say that legally, and I have my opinion. Palestinians are, behind the 440-mile wall in the West Bank. Why does that exist? Yeah, so you have about 3 to 4 million there, and then you have used to be 2.5, probably about 1.8 million Palestinians in Gaza now. And then you've got 7 million Palestinians across the world. 1 in 3 refugees in the world is Palestinian, which I like to say to our right wing, who are overtaken by Zionism, by Jewish supremacy, because they're infiltrated. Actually, if you're a patriot, if you're patriotic to Britain, then you would want it to be Britain first, not Israel first. And okay. If you're Britain first, then you wouldn't want your taxes to go and bomb children. You'd want them to go to the NHS. You'd want them to go to your children. And also, you wouldn't want your doctors to be suspended for stopping a Holocaust, wanting to stop a Holocaust. Yeah? Why are we doing that? Because Wes Streeting took £70,000 from the Israel lobby. And so when he says, we have a majority in Parliament, when he's speaking to the Board of Deputies of British Jews, who's we? Who is we? We is not the British public. So you're telling the Israeli lobbies that we have a majority in Parliament to pass legislation. Where are the Britain First people here? Because that is at the expense of every British citizen. Yeah? Short of killing the British public, the next worst thing you can do is take their doctors away. And if the doctors are the ones saying, don't blow kids' brains out, why are we then not allowed to care for the British public? That's what we should be saying. So those are the basic things that we all kind of need to move the conversation along. Anti-Zionism is anti-Israel. Israel should not exist, and that is the bare minimum. Anything less than is a betrayal to the Palestinian people. And some people say, oh, but we need a ceasefire. Yeah, at the same time, if I'm not going to call for the total liberation, for the principles that were decided upon before I was born, yeah, then whilst the Palestinians are being mass murdered, when will I call for them? When? Yeah? So yeah, that's it. We need to move the conversation along. We can't have any of this two-state BS. We need to stop saying Zionism, because then we can't call out the perpetrators who are Jewish supremacists, because where did they come from? It was Jewish immigrants who came along and they created terrorist groups and they killed the Brits first. Yeah? So the biggest terrorist attack against Brits in history was by Jewish terrorists in Palestine. It's the King David Hotel bombing, which is celebrated every year. They have a plaque for it. Netanyahu went to see the reveal of the plaque, and the British government said, that's not okay, don't do that. But that's not okay. But because they're scared, because they were driven out of Palestine because of Jewish terrorism. I can say Jewish terrorism, we can say Jewish supremacy. These things shouldn't exist. There should be no terrorism of anyone, no supremacy of anyone. We don't want a two-state. We need to demand this from anyone who's setting up parties, who's going to speak for us in Parliament. You don't get to form a party and get recognition, get money from the blood of our martyrs, the blood of our heroic resistance fighters, right? And not call for the basic Palestinian principles of liberation. We need to all demand that. Free, free! Free, free!
Rahmeh, thank you for joining us. How are you doing? Sorry, you're muted. There you are.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Crispin. Thank you, everybody.
Now, look, I've seen that video a couple of times, and it just struck me that you were talking about the two-state solution being you just can't be dealing with that stuff anymore. Do you think that the whole argument has been totally ripped apart? I mean, I would never I'm probably a year ago I could never imagine saying Israel has no right to exist. I mean, that sound would have sounded totally outrageous, but people are saying that now.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is pretty much the Western narrative. You know, if you ask anybody in the Levant, most Arabs, whether they are Muslim or Christian or all in their faith, especially the ones surrounding the entity, they would, most of them would say, we don't recognize it. The governments might, you know, they've normalized, which means they've recognized the existence of it. The Palestinian Authority did that through the Oslo Accords. They recognized the existence of the entity, but most people, I'd say 95% plus of people who live around the terrorist entity do not recognize it, because for them, this is a complete invasion. This is theft, it's theft, not just of their neighbors, but of them, because this is, our land, as we see it as, as it belonging to all of us, and even the neighbors are being affected by this entity.
I mean, in a way, but even acknowledging, I mean, what you've made me think about is even if you acknowledge, say, Israel has a right to exist at all, then that kind of facilitates everything else, doesn't it? It's like you can't do it without allowing Israel to encroach further on, it's just, it just seems that's the crux of the problem.
Precisely. I mean, this is an analogy that is used a lot. But if somebody came into your house and said, this house is mine, whether it's because of religious beliefs, whether it's political beliefs, whatever it is, and then they murdered some of your family, they starved you, and they put you in one room and then just started to take, move the wall into the room that you're in, because that's basically what Gaza and the West Bank are, right? And then people around said, look, they have a right to a part of your home. They have a right to exist in your house. And you go, no, this is literally my home. and what you're saying, whilst they are currently starving and murdering me, is you're saying that they're still allowed to be in my home, because the starvation and the murder is only happening because they can be inside. Whether if they leave, then I won't be in danger anymore. But you're not even asking for them to leave. You're saying that you're trying to engage me, who's being murdered. We've been murdered and raped and starved by these supremacists for 100 years. This is before the existence of the entity. So then if somebody, let's say people say, okay, right, so we've recognized the entity now, what we'll do is we'll just split it down the middle. It's a ludicrous thing to say. And well, I'm going to take it a step further, actually, because we're kind of always being given these limitations of where we're meant to speak. But actually, real anti-Zionism, real, if we're going to talk in lefty terms, real social justice, real equality, and seeing Palestinians as humans, would be decolonization. It would be get out of the house. It's not yours. It never was yours. And not just get out of the house. You need to face justice. You're a murderer, a rapist. And those of you who haven't committed crimes have stayed in the house, and you've given cover for the people who are committing crimes, because your existence there shields them. So I would go a step further and say, actually asking the owners of the house, after all of these crimes, after being slaughtered, their kids burned alive, to live inside that house with the murderers and rapists is also outrageous. It's called, give me my home back and you must leave.
Oh, yeah. Now, I'd like to talk more. We have to come. You have to come on. I like your T-shirt, by the way. What does it say on it? Death, death.
To the
Oh,
idea.
right. Oh, right. Okay. Well, we can't. The Mail on Sunday weren't like that.
No, they weren't. This was a birthday gift.
I'm just going to ask you. You're doing some kind of show with the other Dr. Rihanna. Is that right?
Yes, Dr. Rahmeh and I have a joke, but it's really not a joke, because it's affected not only our careers but our lives. But I think we've been smeared as the top 2 anti-Semites in the UK. So we've made a podcast. We have filmed the first episode. We're still working on getting that out, and it's called R&R, the Anti-Semitic Club. I mean, obviously it's a play on words, because I'm part Palestinian, I'm a Semite. It's just I think it's a term that now needs to be removed completely, because I think using the term if you say that I'm anti-Semitic, when I'm a Semite, what you do is you erase my existence. And I think that was by design. I don't think that that's an innocent thing to use against Palestinians, because then you're stripping them of, the whole point is to basically replace Palestinians. It's just to remove them from existence, whether they, the 7 million in exile, or by starving them to death or killing them. It's just to remove them. And it's like, I will claim your land and your identity. So I really think anti-Semitism, it shouldn't be used. It should be anti-Jewish hatred. Just like I don't really like the term Islamophobia. I think it should be anti-Muslim hatred. It should just be, because then it makes it simple. It means actually nothing I've said has ever been hatred towards Jews. I just don't like the foreign Jews that came and killed us and made my great granddad leave his home. The rest, the secular ones, the ones who are not claiming my land, they're fine. They're my friends. They march with me. That's cool.
Right. Well, I get what you're saying, and look, let us know when you've got your podcast out. And thank you again for coming on and for your speech, and hope to catch up with you soon.
Yeah, just before I go, very, very quickly, the Thawabit, the Palestinian Principles of Liberation, I think these need to be sort of the minimum of what we expect. Obviously, the Corbyn party, etc., that's not a single issue party. There's so much, internal issues that we need to deal with. But I think anybody who wants to speak on behalf of the Palestinians, this is coming from Palestinians. I'm in touch with loads in Gaza, etc., my family. I think they need to uphold them now, because I think that will align our movement so that we don't get this infiltration, or we don't get this controlled opposition. We know what we're talking about is, no normalization, support Palestinians' right to resistance as per international law. Palestine is Arab, its capital is Jerusalem, it's the entire map, and the 7 million Palestinians in exile because Israelis exist on our land must go home.